All right, so we're going to get into it.
Let's do noise gate.
We'll try and be as concise as we possibly can. We get asked this question all the time, and I want to be able to edit this out and do post it as a separate thing.
Mm-hmm.
So when people email in, you guys can say, hey,
watch this.
We've talked about it. We're going to have a look at the 4-cable method, noise gates, and volume pedals, and where you put them. This is my pedal board, which I have torn apart for this demonstration. If we can just go to the first image, Lizzie. Mm-hmm. So this is a classic pedal board setup in series, which means all of the pedals, your signal goes from right to left, and then out of the last pedal, we go into the front of the amplifier. So this is a close-up so that you can see in detail what's going on. So the guitar is going into the input of the Atom. We've got the pedals in the loops, and then out of the output, we're going straight into the input of the amplifier. It's what we've been doing since the dawn of time. It's what I still do, and I still love doing it that way. However, for players that use amp distortion, there's nothing quite like it. The difference with using the 4-cable method with an amplifier, using the preamp of an amplifier to get your distortion, you absolutely can still use overdrives and things in the front, but then it's what we're using after the preamp. So you can see these are the pedals in series, okay, going to the front of the amplifier. And This is what we're going to have a look at to start with. This is called the 4-cable method. It's called the 4-cable method because we got one cable that goes into the pedal board, one cable that goes out of the pedal board into the front of the amplifier, one cable that goes from the effects loop send of the amp back to the pedal board, and one cable from the output of the pedal board back to the effects loop return. So we call this the 4-cable method. And what does this do? So this is what we're looking at. We're looking at how we break into the signal path of a switcher to include the preamp of an amplifier. So here we've got set up on the board. We've got my pedal board. I've got Victory V30 with a clean channel and a dirty channel and an effects loop. So I've got a little Bob Burt cab mic'd up, V30 in it. Very, very simple. We're going to start with a clean sound. This is no effects on and the guitar going straight into the amp. Now we're going to go to the dirty channel of the amp. Okay, so we're not changing anything at the moment. We're just going to change from the clean channel of the amp to the dirty channel of the amp.
Are you ready?
If you wouldn't mind, sir.
Rock and roll!
Rock and roll.
Shred it! Listen to all that noise.
Listen to the noise.
Lord, what will we do?
All right, so we go back to the clean channel. But that sort of level of noise when you're dealing with dirty channels and effects loop and stuff, this is the nature of what happens. Now, one of the reasons that we like using the effects loop of the amplifier is specifically for the effects that we use after the preamp. So for example, so this is our series pedal board, right? This is the effects going straight into the front of the amplifier. Now, if the amplifier is set up clean, we don't have any problem. It's all lovely. If we have an effect like a delay going into the dirty channel, it's going to make the delay really dirty. I've got the Victory V30 set up, and if we hit number 4,
some sauce,
right? So this is the dirty channel of the Victory, and it's at the end of the signal path. Okay, so let's get some rockage. If you can turn the delay on for me.
Be my pleasure.
So this is the delay into the dirty channel of the Victory. It's actually it's really cool sound.
It is very cool.
But now, if you go to 3 for me.
I'm going to go to 3.
Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the delay after the preamp of the Victory.
Send it, Daniel.
So you can hear that instead of distorting the delay, we are delaying the distortion, right? That's the difference. We are not distorting the delay going into the distortion. We are delaying the distortion. So the distortion from the preamp is going into the delay and we're delaying that. We have a lot more control. But it's really important to note that to do this, you need an effect that can handle the signal coming from your amp. This is hugely important. When we talk about effects loops, all effects loops are not created equally. Like for example, the V30 and actually all of the Victory stuff, fantastic effects loops, and they work great with just about everything. So I've got a bunch of analog effects here. If you can turn on the, if we go to foot switch 3, and then turn on the flanger for me. Bit of delay.
Bit of sauce.
And some slapback. Bit of slapback.
Send it.
Sending it.
Go on hybrid picking.
A good effects loop is actually super flexible, and there's a thing like analog effects don't work in the loops of effects. For a lot of effects, the good ones, they absolutely can, as long as they don't have a stupidly small headroom. If they're anyway decent, they can work fine. In an effect loop like my Matchless, I mean, I've clocked 30 volts coming out of that.
Really?
And it's
30 volts? That's insane.
It is crazy.
That's silly.
Nothing on this board is going to work with it.
Yeah.
Nothing. Because the way that the Matchless works and tweed amps and things like that, so much of the sound is created by the preamp slamming into the phase inverter of the valve, right?
So you need all that voltage.
You've got to have that to get that sound. The way this works is I'm thinking of the preamp of the amplifier as I would any other pedal, okay? So we are going out of the send, and in this case we're using loop 4, right? So we're going out of the send of loop 4 into the input of the amp. Then the effects loop is actually the place where it splits between the preamp and the power amp.
I think this is really important.
It's hugely important. If you understand this, then you won't have any issue hooking any of this stuff up.
I just want to say that so many people try and visualize the effects loop as a tangible thing. Yeah. But it's actually a void. It's the back of one thing and the front of the other.
It's the end of one thing and the start of another. That's exactly right.
And if you see it as a void, if you see it as that, it makes more sense. But if you try and visualize the effects loop as a tangible thing, then
you're just going to get confused.
But I think that's classic Fender amps labeling it as preamp out and power amp in.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Makes much more sense than effects send in return. But
yeah. Thank you, Hot Rod Deluxe.
Yeah.
So that the effects loop splits the preamp and the power amp. We go from, and Lizzie, I'm going to be testing you in a second on this. So we go from the send, the send of the effects loop is going to go back into the pedal board. So any effects that are before the preamp, before the split, go into the front of the amp. Any effects that are after the split, so we go from the send back into the board and then we carry on down the line. Any effects that are after that are effectively in the loop of the amplifier. The other super important thing is that if you're using a switcher and you're putting your preamp in the switcher, you have to have the loop that you've connected the preamp in engaged on all presets. Okay?
The amount of emails we still get where people go, my amp's clean.
My amp's clean. I don't know what's going on.
None of the controls work.
Here's what happens. We're going to go to number 3.
Number 3.
All right? Now this is with the preamp of the amplifier engage. Can you please turn off? So if you can see here, loop 4 is lit, right? So the preamp is loop 4. Now, if you turn off loop 4.
Where did the source go?
All the source is gone. Oh, no. Because we have now bypassed the preamp. We are going straight into the power amp with no preamp.
Oh, God. Phew.
There we go.
Panic over.
So at a time like this, I'm just glad we're not using a Mesa Boogie and they don't have a master volume and then we all die.
This amplifier has 2 separate master volumes and 2 separate preamp levels. So you can select your clean gain and select your overdrive gain and then balance the volumes up. We're going to have a quick talk about the noise gate. We get asked all the time, where do I put the noise suppressor in my signal path? Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of different places to go. I find this works as well as any because A, it doesn't take up any other loops. You can put it in its own loop. I find that this works great. So
all I was going to say was the only reason why you would do that is if you're using, say, a germanium fuzz or particularly
and you want the
sensitive fuzz, then you don't really want that first because it's going to affect it.
Completely.
Otherwise, it makes sense for it to go first.
And in that sense, yeah, you can. But what you could also do in that situation is put a +2 in front of it.
True.
Switch that remotely.
Very true.
New from the GigRig +2.
Here we have the NS2 noise suppressor. Here's how this works. My guitar is plugged into the input. What this is looking at is any signal from my guitar is going to open the gate. That's why we call it a noise gate. The signal opens the gate. We have a loop in the noise suppressor, and that's the gate that opens, and then we have an output. Okay, so here's how the signal works. The guitar is going into the noise gate. The send is going into the pedal board. Then it goes into the first pedals. We come out of effects loop 4, same as we were doing before, into the input of the preamp of the amplifier. Then we come out of the send of the amplifier. We go back into the return of the noise gate. Then the output of the noise gate goes back into the return of loop 4. So I'll say that again and try and follow along. Guitar goes into the input. This is looking for my signal, and then it's going to open the gate. Send goes into the input of the pedal board. That signal travels along looking for the loops. I come out of the send of loop 4 into the input of the amplifier, out of the effects loop send of the amplifier, back into the loop return of the noise suppressor, then out of the output of the noise suppressor, back into the loop return of number 4 and G3. What happens? When I play a note, the gate opens and lets signal travel into the board through any pedals that are there, comes out of the send into the amplifier. We've got signal happening out of the effects loop send, back into the board. What's interesting is if I use a clean sound, if you go to 1 for me.
Oh, I've heard you tuner. We're on 1 already.
Here's my clean sound. The noise gate isn't on. Turn the noise gate on. You don't really hear any difference.
No.
It's like, I don't need a noise gate.
Now
However,
let's give some
let's go to...
Oh my god.
There you go. There's my noise. And turn the noise gate on.
See ya.
Isn't that good?
Yeah.
It's like it's gone. My signal is still traveling through into the preamp, but it's waiting for me to hit the guitar so the gate opens. You ready? And you hear it go, whoom, right? But once I finish and I stop playing, it kills the noise. Can you turn the delay on for me,
Dan,
please?
it'd be my pleasure.
Okay, this is really important. Why did we put the noise gate, the return of the noise gate, back in before the delay? Why didn't we just have it at the end of the pedal board?
Because it would cut
Answer
the delay
me.
off.
It would cut the delay off.
Answer me now.
It's really important that the output of your noise gate is returned before your modulation effects. I only really want to put the noise gate in with gain effects.
Gate the gain and then let the wet stuff after.
But it's equally why it's so important to put it first, because if that was placed just in the effects loop, just through the input, you have to set it so high
it doesn't work.
That as soon as that level drops even slightly, it cuts off, and then you get that classic gated guitar sound that I know you hate.
I can't stand it.
Because it sounds like it's chopped, like it's been edited. Whereas, because you have to set that threshold so high because you're listening to the noise you're trying to get rid of, as opposed to just hearing what the guitar is doing.
That's right.
And then regardless of what you put in the loop, it reacts the same.
Yeah.
Whereas if you were to place that like without using the loop, everything you add in front of it changes the character and changes what the settings need to be. And then it never really works as it should. Whereas the fact that you can put that on and have a clean channel on and not hear a difference is pretty miraculous, really.
Now I'm gonna set up a ridiculously heavy sound. So there's the if you can turn on the fuzz. So now footage number 2.
There it is.
Right? Now the noise gate is off.
I'll turn the delay off as well.
Turn the delay on.
You want the delay on? You're a madman. You're a madman.
So here. And
phew.
That's with flanger
you
on
ready?
as well.
Shred it.
If I'm using it like for the heavy stuff, like that is a crazy amount of gain, and I'd never use that much gain. But I've got a fuzz going into the front of the amplifier with the with the heavy channel, the distorted channel, then going into flange and delay. I mean, if we turn the noise gate off again.
Oh my giddy aunt.
I mean, that's...
What the hell?
It's quite unpleasant, isn't it, Izzy? That's quite unpleasant.
Yeah. So here we go. And...
miraculous.
Now those effects are still on. They haven't changed. Those effects are still on.
Say what?
But the gate in the noise gate is closed because it hasn't been triggered by the input of the guitar, right? As soon as I trigger, is that making sense?
Yes, 100%.
Have I been very clear?
The only thing I wanted to say was the easiest way to think about it is that if you remember that a send is an output and a return is an input,
that's
then
right.
Then it's even easier to understand.
Perfect.
Because you have to remember that what a send is in return. If you simplify even further and remember we've got an output and input, and all we're doing is going out to in, out to in, out to in. Okay, it's even simpler.
I love it. Okay, last piece of the puzzle.
Oh no.
Volume pedal.
Where do we put it?
Where do we put the volume pedal?
Gasp! I don't know.
And especially one of the things, if you've got a setup like this, where do we put the volume pedal? If you use a setup like this where you're incorporating your preamp into a loop of your G3 or G2 or switcher, where do you put your volume pedal?
Tell me, man. Tell me now.
Right. So this is the current noise gate situation, right? We can see how the loops before the preamp and the preamp itself are in the loop of the noise gate. Then out of the noise gate, we go back into all the other effects. And this is where we're going to put the volume pedal. We're going to put the volume pedal between the output of the noise gate and the return of loop 4 in G3. So basically the volume pedal is going to sit after the noise gate, but before the input to the rest of the effects. There's a reason I really like this solution. I'll leave the noise gate on for a moment. If we go to number 3.
Number 3.
Yep, and just a little bit of delay for us. Here is the gain from the amplifier and my delay, right? It's very distorted, but because I'm using preamp gain, watch what happens when I roll the volume of my guitar. It cleans right up. If I wanted to use a volume pedal to clean up my gain, I would have it at the start of the signal path, but I don't. I want to use it as a master volume. So the way that I'm doing that is I've got a more or less here, and this is my volume pedal, expression pedal here. I am inserting the more or less between the output of the noise gate and the loop return of G3. So now what happens with that sound, Joe, if you could be so kind as to control the volume pedal for me.
Rock his treadle, sir.
Why I really like the volume pedal in this position is because I'm not changing the gain structure of the guitar, right? So if I go and I turn this down, the tone doesn't change, it just gets quieter. But when I turn bring the volume back, I still have delay trails and reverb trails and everything else that I want to do it. So for me, that makes the most sense of where to put the volume pedal.
I agree.
The more or less, as well, as far as the volume is concerned, it is spectacular, because what I can then do is I can have the more or less as a boost. So if I turn up the toe position, now there's my normal rhythm sound. And then
hit the solo, let's go! Ow, 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 there you go! Changed my life! Yeah!
I love that. It's magic. But because the headroom in more or less is designed to work with the matchless, so it's like 36 volts. And it's perfectly clean and silent. So whatever volume pedal that you use in the effects loop of your amplifier, you need to make sure that one of the things with effects loops in amplifiers is they are very impedance dependent, which is why, having a long cable from some effects loops, send of some effects loops, you can hear a difference in the tone because they don't have a low impedance. If you stick a passive volume pedal in that situation, it's going to exacerbate that, or can exacerbate that if you've got an effects loop that doesn't have a very low impedance. So that's just one thing to look out for. You don't have that issue with more or less. This is the whole picture, and I've just zoomed out so that you can see everything, but that is the whole picture. And I've done it as high res as possible so that you can zoom in and have a look. But that tells you exactly how we've done it here. And hopefully that will help. That's how we finish the show.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.